Antarctica might be a frozen wasteland today, but that wasn't always the case. Join me as we check out the prehistoric beasts frozen beneath Antarctica and other secrets of the ice. Dinosaurs of the South. The landmass everyone knows as Antarctica wasn't in the same place it is today 190 million years ago. Antarctica was far closer to the equator, and before it was covered in snow and ice, Antarctica was home to some ferocious prehistoric beasts. Scientists are fairly certain that if they could just get below the ice to the dirt and start digging, they would find a wealth of dinosaur fossils. They've already found a handful of them in exposed sections, including a monumental plant-eater and a far more terrifying carnivore. But let's start with the carnivore. Cryolophosaurus was one of the biggest meat-eaters of the Jurassic period. It weighed over 1,000 pounds and stood 21 feet tall. It was no T-Rex, but it was a vicious killer. One of its more interesting aspects was its head crest, which looked sort of like a comb. Artist imaginings of Cryolophosaurus have revealed it to be an enormous owl-like dinosaur covered in pale feathers, but nobody knows what it really looked like. The other colossal dinosaur of Antarctica that scientists know about is Glacialosaurus. It lived during the same time as Cryolophosaurus, prowling the central region of Antarctica in what is now known as the Transantarctic Mountains. Its name translates to frozen lizard, even though it wasn't frozen at the time it was alive. Its bones may have been found in the ice, but the herbivore lived during a time when Antarctica was more of a tropical paradise than a frozen wasteland. It grew over 20 feet long and wasn't much different from other famous sauropods that have been discovered in North America. These are only two examples. The point I'm trying to make is that hidden beneath all the ice is an untouched world of fossils. If Antarctica ever does become totally ice-free, scientists are going to have a field day discovering new dinosaurs. The Endurance Letters. In 2022, the wreckage of one of the most important lost ships in history was discovered in Antarctica. The legendary Endurance, the ship captained by none other than Ernest Shackleton, was found preserved in an exceptional state at the bottom of the Weddell Sea. And recently, the very same marine archaeologist who led the expedition has found two more artifacts. Mensenbound revealed two previously unknown letters that were written while Shackleton was trying to save his men from certain doom. Ernest Shackleton was the man who tried to cross Antarctica and failed epically. In 1915, the Endurance got trapped in ice. For months, he and his crew survived at the bottom of the world amidst snow and brutal cold. They ran out of food and had to eat their expedition dogs. They also knew their ship was a goner, so they abandoned it. The crew took 3 lifeboats from the ice-trapped vessel and set off to look for a way home. They reached a place called Elephant Island, where they managed to kill penguins and seals. And at the end of the ordeal, all 28 crew members returned home alive. In a place where many expeditions ended in tragedy, Shackleton made sure his crew lived to tell the tale. But it was no easy feat. Once they had reached Elephant Island, Shackleton commandeered one of the lifeboats and set sail across the open sea to seek rescue, and help finally arrived in August 1916. The newly revealed letters were written by a young man from Oxford named Thomas Goddard. He'd been in the Falkland Islands when Shackleton turned up in a crummy little boat, desperate for help. On July 12, 1916, Thomas wrote a letter to his mother. He described Shackleton as a fascinating person and a very funny man who kept everyone up at night laughing. He wrote another letter to his mother on September 5th of that same year. Thomas confirmed that Shackleton had rescued his party on Elephant Island, and he expressed his happiness that the men would finally be going home. The letters are amazing because nobody had ever seen them before. And while Thomas Goddard wasn't part of the expedition, his letters are a fascinating third-party account of Shackleton himself and his determination to save his men. And now for number 6, but first it's shout-out time. I wanted to give a big thank you to Terry Lynn 1071 and Daniel Holland 20 Twin for supporting this channel. Be sure to subscribe if you haven't already for more videos like these. A horse bridle. In the rapidly melting mountains of Norway, archaeologists have just found proof of what might have been a Viking convoy. As the ice melts in Norway's highest altitudes, archaeologists continue to find more lost artifacts that could fill a museum. People walked across the vast mountains of Scandinavia thousands of years ago on their journeys. They lost a lot of personal belongings as they moved, many of which became frozen over in ice. But now that the ice is leaving faster than scientists anticipated, the lost artifacts are being revealed for the first time. And one of the artifacts that was recently discovered is a horse bridle dating back to the Viking Age. Not just a bridle, but also an iron horseshoe. It was a discovery of Viking Age horse equipment buried in the frigid mountains for at least 1,000 years, maybe even more. But if this is such a cold and inhospitable place, why were Vikings traversing it? Didn't they have boats to take and villages to pillage? To be honest, it was simply the best way for early Nordic people to move from one part of the country to another. Maybe these people didn't have ships, or maybe sailing just wasn't a logical solution. So they got on their horses or wagons, and they traveled in convoys through the snowy gullies of what's now called the Lendbrin Pass. According to archaeologist Lars Holger Pilo, who's been studying the ice fields here for years, there are 66 sites in the region. That means there are 66 places where evidence of Viking activity has been discovered. And in total, researchers have already excavated about 4,000 artifacts. Ancient seeds. If you could take a nap for about 30,000 or 40,000 years and then be woken up, would that appeal to you? It seems like an impossible thing, but maybe not for long. Scientists recently resurrected frozen seeds that had been sleeping for 32,000 years. The seeds were discovered in the Siberian permafrost, buried an incredible 124 feet beneath the surface. It's believed they were buried underground by a squirrel during the Ice Age. The squirrel had stashed a bunch of seeds, presumably to feast on during the winter, but the squirrel never ate them, so they remained undisturbed and locked deep in the earth. The seeds were taken back to a laboratory. Then in 2012, Russian scientists at the Institute of Cell Biophysics regenerated the seeds. They woke them up and grew a plant that had been dormant since the days when woolly mammoths roamed across the planet. The Russian team said it was the oldest plant ever to be regenerated. Prior to this incredible scientific achievement, the oldest plants ever regenerated came from Judea 2,000 years ago. It's a fairly ordinary plant that was once native to Siberia called Silene stenophylla. It has white flowers and looks like any other plant you might find in a meadow. Humans and plants are obviously quite different, but if scientists can regenerate a frozen plant, doesn't that stand to reason it's only a matter of time before they can regenerate a frozen human? How long do you think it will be until human beings can be taken in and out of stasis, just like freezing and regenerating seeds? Let us know your thoughts in the comments, and while you're at it, subscribe to the channel. The figure in the snow. Something extremely strange has been found in Antarctica on Google Earth. It appears to be a figure lying at the edge of some mountains. People have called it an alien figure, saying it looks as if an extraterrestrial is wandering around in Antarctica. But what is it, really? The shocking image was taken from Google Earth and posted online by a fairly well-known conspiracy theorist named Scott Waring. He's been behind a lot of Antarctic discoveries, from supposed alien ships to secret bases hidden in the ice. His newest discovery is interesting in that you really can't dispute what he's found. It does look like an alien figure in the Antarctic ice, and Scott claims the figure is about 60 feet tall. But do you really think there's a 60-foot-tall alien meandering about Antarctica? It's okay to believe. There are lots of people who think Antarctica is a secret breeding ground for aliens. But sadly, the truth is impossible to find sometimes. There are others who say the alien figure is nothing but a shadow. They say if it's an entity from outer space, where is its ship? The most logical explanation is that the alien figure is the result of pareidolia. That's the scientific name for when your brain sees a random pattern as something recognizable. For example, a cloud that forms a dragon or a shadow that looks like an alien in Antarctica. But then again, why does there always need to be a logical explanation? The lemming. Angelina Sadovnikova was only 11 years old when she came across a mummified rodent near the border of the Arctic Circle. In Siberia's Yakutia region, Angelina accidentally found a perfectly preserved lemming from 41,000 years ago. But how exactly does an 11-year-old girl become an accidental archaeologist? Well, she was walking along the shore of a local river with her mother when she found the frozen rodent. It had been left in a cavity dug out by a woolly mammoth's tusk. Becoming an accidental archaeologist just isn't something you can plan. It happens by complete accident. You have to be in the right place at the right time. The truly amazing part is that the child realized it was a prehistoric creature and not a modern frozen squirrel. She took the lemming to a local historian who in turn quickly alerted a biologist, and soon enough the lemming was transported to Moscow where it would be studied. Scientists determined that the tiny mummy is the oldest lemming in existence. It's slightly bigger than a modern Siberian lemming. It still has its fur, its teeth, its limbs, and its original colors. Every single bone has survived, with only its organs missing. Discovering a frozen rodent isn't quite as spectacular as discovering a frozen behemoth like a mammoth, but it's still extremely important. Lemmings, which are related to voles and muskrats, and more distantly related to rats and hamsters, are hardy animals. The mammoths aren't here anymore, but the lemmings definitely are. And if for some reason humans go extinct, lemmings will be here long after we are gone. The goat mummy. A goat died in the Italian Alps 400 years ago. It was seen for the first time ever by a champion skier who stumbled upon its disturbing carcass sticking out of the ice. You'd hardly recognize this thing as a goat though. It's even a bit of a stretch to call it a mummy. The goat is hairless, leathery, and stretched like some sort of boneless alien monster thing. But it is a goat, or more specifically, a goat antelope. Champion skier Hermann Oberlechner was hiking through Val Arena in South Tyrol when he noticed the unsightly abomination. In a statement, Hermann said that he'd never seen anything like it in his life. As horrific as it was, you can imagine it's still tough to look away from something like that. Hermann took a photo and sent the picture to a park ranger. Then the Department of Cultural Heritage got involved. It's a gross discovery, but scientists love gross stuff. Researchers greedily swarmed the mountain to study the goat mummy. The tough part was getting it down off the slopes. It was so difficult that the Alpine Army Corps had to step in and help. The goat was excavated and then placed inside a special case to keep the remains in so that they didn't spoil on the way down. The ultimate goal for researchers is to learn more about what the world was like 400 years ago. Any creature that's been preserved in ice can do that, even a measly goat. As a side note, I should mention that the goat was found extremely close to where Otzi the Iceman was discovered in 1991. Otzi was a real frozen caveman who lived 5,300 years ago. Hikers were also behind his discovery in the Italian Alps. Through the years, Otzi has revealed a significant amount of information about prehistoric people. For example, he was covered in tattoos. That was a substantial shock for a lot of people, learning that cavemen tattooed themselves. One of the biggest hopes now is that another Otzi is found in the rapidly melting ice of the Alps across Europe. Scientists don't care where it is, France, Italy, or Switzerland. It doesn't matter. Any frozen mummy stuck in an icy grave is a major score for researchers. Icy worms. Scientists in Russia were doing tests on a sample of Siberian permafrost when they made an unexpected discovery. They hadn't anticipated their chunk of permafrost to have frozen worms inside of it. When the scientists carbon dated the sample, they were shocked to learn that the worms were last unfrozen 46,000 years ago, and one of them even belonged to a previously unknown species. Anastasia Shatalovich was the one who thawed the worms out in 2018. It was already a shocking discovery, but things got even more absurd when the worms thawed and went right back to being worms. Anastasia said that she couldn't believe her eyes. When she awakened the worms, which are technically nematodes, they immediately began to reproduce in the laboratory. Suddenly, these worms that were frozen for so long were asexually reproducing more worms. Authentic creatures from the Pleistocene era laid eggs, giving rise to the emergence of live nematodes. What I want to know is why this never happens with dinosaurs. Why do scientists never discover a frozen T-Rex couple that can be thawed and then allowed to reproduce? The answer is obvious. It's just a little depressing. Worms are very different than dinosaurs. These tiny creatures are so perfectly adapted to brutal conditions that they can live dormant seemingly forever. Scientists think there's something in their DNA that could help lead to human-suspended animation. Or in scientific terms, cryptobiosis. The worms are now dead, but scientists are currently studying and observing over 1,000 of their modern descendants. What do you think about a future where humans can be frozen for thousands of years? Let us know your thoughts in the comments down below. And if you enjoyed this video, be sure to leave a like and subscribe to the channel. Thank you so much for watching, and we'll see you in the next one. Bye.